Hey, this is Ryan from Haekka, and today I'm going to show you how to create a training and assign that to employees. So the first thing you want to do is have the application installed, of course. Installing Haekka is made super easy through our integration with Slack, which you can find on our main website here. Just add to Slack. It'll take you through the steps, and you'll be able to get going right away. The next thing that you're going to want to do is sign into our web dashboard, which you can find at dashboard.haekka.com. You can also launch all of this directly from the Slack application, which we'll show here in a second. Once you log into the dashboard, the next thing you want to do is go to your trainings. And this is going to list any active trainings that you have open. You can also come in here and create a training, which is what we're going to show how to do today. So we're going to customize this training, but I'm actually not going to do it here so that we can take a look at what a training looks like when we don't customize it. So you do have access to our library of content. I have a number of different courses that have been created already, but let's say I want to create a security awareness training course. We have options to include things like weekly quizzes, which get sent to your employees. We're not going to include those right now because I'm going to show how to add those later. You can have a days until due. This would basically mean however many days an employee has to complete the training once they've been assigned. So if you have an employee that's joining on Monday, they get assigned the training Monday, and let's say we set this to 14 days, they would have 14 days from that Monday to complete that. And Haekka automatically reminds them in Slack, so there's really never any worry on your side on whether or not they got the training done. When the training is complete, you'll get a notification for that. Plus, you'll have evidence within the dashboard. You can also add some tags. So let's say we wanted to say, security awareness, SAT. This just gives your other admins kind of a good opportunity to identify what the training is about. This is especially true for custom training. And then, of course, for trainings that need to be renewed, for example, security training you have to do every year, HIPAA privacy training you have to do every year, certain GDPR trainings you have to do quarterly. So you can just select how often you want this to renew. Haekka will automatically renew that training and send it out to employees whenever you have that set. So let's just say we want to do this every quarter. Now, the next option is going to be grading your training. So you can have training that isn't graded, meaning that if employees answer the questions incorrectly, they can still effectively complete the training. That's our most popular option. In fact, most of our training isn't graded. But if you do have comprehension issues, or you want to ensure that employees are answering the questions 100% correctly, or 70% or 80%, you'll have the options to kind of select that here. Now, if an employee fails to achieve this grading threshold, the Haekka Slack app will actually notify the user and say you have to retake the training. So it'll just kind of push them through the training again. Once they achieve the threshold, whatever grade that they get and whatever it's set at, they'll be able to pass out. And then once they've passed out of the training, that's when they'll be able to generate a certificate that they've completed the training. So let's go ahead and confirm our selection. So you can see here we're going to create security awareness training. It's going to renew every quarter. Every employee gets 14 days to complete it before it's due. We're not going to include weekly quizzes right now when it does not have a grading threshold. So you'll see here that this just creates the training, and you can see that we now can see when it's going to renew. So it'll renew after it's assigned today on the 29th of December, March, June, and September. Now, if we go into manage, this is where we can assign employees, and we can do other things like convert this to a custom training. So the first thing I'm going to do, though, is assign this to myself so that we can see what it looks like. So I'm just going to assign this to myself. We'll assign all employees. And I will have received a notification in the Haekka Slack app. And so this is what it looks like from the employee's perspective. It says, hey, you've just been assigned security awareness training. Get started by clicking the open training button below. And of course, you have 14 days to complete this training, which means it's going to be due on October 13th. Now, because I'm an admin and a user, you'll actually see two messages here. Perfect, you're all set. I've notified those employees. So when you assign an employee, we just kind of give you a heads up that, hey, they've been assigned, you're all set. From the employee's perspective, this is the message that they'll get. So this means that an employee can actually jump into this training right away. They can also come back to it at a later time and find it right here in their trainings list. So what does this look like? Well, a training is kind of made up of several different sections, depending on if it's a complex lesson or if it's a simple lesson. This one is a little bit more complex because it does have things like a lesson content, scenario, as well as external resources. So the first thing that the user is going to see is like, hey, this is a lesson. It's about security and how it's everybody's job. Here are the key points we want you to take away from this lesson. And then they can jump right into the lesson content. And this is where we're going to have the content that we basically want to convey in this message. Now, of course, we can expand this. Users can take their time. They can read through this. But typically, these are pretty short. The next button that you're going to see is the lesson scenario. And this is where we kind of take a real world scenario and put the user in the shoes of, say, a support agent or a security user, or there's some type of event that's happening where we're trying to apply the knowledge from the lesson within the scenario. We then, of course, follow that scenario up with a question, and you can choose as many as you want here. Now, for questions that, or for scenarios that are not graded, we actually give the user real-time feedback so they can see whether or not they were right or wrong. Of course, if it's graded, we don't show this until after the training is complete, until after they've passed out of it. So I can actually finish this lesson, and you'll see here that I'm now 8% done with this lesson, and I can kind of just jump through. So if I'm a user, I know that I have access to this whenever I want. I can always come back to the Haekka Slack app over here. And then, of course, as an admin, I know that the Haekka Slack app is going to continuously remind the user that, hey, it's due in a week, it's due tomorrow, it's due today, or that it's past due. And so we can kind of gently nudge the user and ensure that they get the training done. Now, let's say, this content's fine, but maybe I have some specific, security, security operations and policies and procedures that I want to basically inject into some of this content. So maybe we have a specific way that we do phishing, and there's other information that's not in here that I want to include. So if we're in the dashboard and we're an admin, we can actually come over to this options menu and convert this training to a custom training, which means that you can make any edits that you want. So we're going to convert this training to a custom training, and you'll see that we now have access to open up these lessons. So if I were to make this full screen, you can see that I can change the content here. So, if I wanted to change lesson 1, I could do that. I can come down here, change the lesson content, the lesson scenario. I can add an answer if I want to. I can add a video if I want to. So there's a lot of options that I have for editing this content. So let's take, for example, the fact that I, want to add a 13th lesson. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to hit add lesson, and we'll say lesson 13. And we'll say extra company specific content. We're going to make this a simple lesson so we can see what that looks like. So lesson content, let's just say, this is some content specific to our company. And then let's just say, a question, was this, useful? And we can say yes, no, and then let's just say maybe. Oops. So now that we have these answers, we can select which one is correct. So we'll just say yes is correct. And then, of course, like I said, we can add a video if we wanted to. So if we had a video that we wanted to add here, we can add YouTube, Wistia, Loom, or Vimeo links. Those will all automatically unfurl within Slack. So now we're going to save this lesson, and you'll see that here that we have the 13th lesson, and we can see the copy. So if we always want to come back here, we can always edit this. Now, what does that look like from the user's perspective? Well, because this user already has, training assigned, they would actually just be able to come back in here, open the training back up, and they'll have access to this 13th lesson. So there's no need to reassign the training or do anything else to have the user, obtain that new lesson. So you see here, we just have, some content that we added specific to our company. We see that the new lesson is located right here. We have our new scenario with questions. And so we can say, yes, was this useful? And so now we can finish out the lesson. From an admin perspective, you can always come in here, back to the dashboard. We have some specific metrics around your top performers, trainings complete, lessons complete, and then, how many employees have, training assigned or not. You can also always go over to your employees, search for employees. You can find your employees in the employees list, and you can see, which trainings they have assigned, which ones are complete, which ones are not complete. You can always remove an employee. We will automatically unassign them if they're removed from Slack anyway. The catalog, we kind of went over a little bit, but this has all of the training that we have access to. So you can always add a training from this page or from the trainings page. And then to give other people access to write content and add training, you can always add admins here. Now, one last thing to show on the training level is that you actually have access to things like evidence, right? So let's say you do have a security training that you've converted and you want to, download evidence of that. We'll actually send you the evidence automatically in Slack. That's what this looks like. So this is a spreadsheet that you could send to your auditor, or you could upload to an evidence collection tool. So the other piece of evidence is that after an employee completes a training, they can always request a certificate. And so, of course, if the employee has a graded training and they pass out of it successfully, they'll get this message. Or if they have a training that is not graded and they complete the training, they'll be able to get this message. And so they can actually generate a certificate on the fly. So this is great for compliance platforms that require users to kind of complete their own checklists. And it's great to just ensure that your employees are, collecting the evidence that they actually completed the training. And so that will happen for, any training that a user completes. They also, have access as long as they've, been assigned the training, they always have access to the lesson. So they can always come back either to the messages tab or to the home tab and find the training that they've been assigned. So anyway, I hope that was helpful. There's a lot of other features that we'd love to cover, but this video is already long enough. So check out Haekka.com, download the app, send us a message, we really hope you like using it. Thanks.